Dean, I think it's close enough to 7 o'clock. I'd like to go ahead and reopen the regular session.
Sounds good.
We have the tape recording.
Since we have the video recording,
okay.
we're not going to do the audio.
Good evening. For those just come, we just finished a work session. We opened the session about 6 o'clock for a work session for presentation. But at this point here, I'd like to remind anybody that wants to sign up to speak should do so. With that, I've already done a call to order. We have an approval of the agenda. Any commissioners? No problems with the agenda?
I approve.
Okay. We'll move on to public comments and
First one is Jay Cable.
It's a little different configuration than I'm used to from before. I'm used to sit over here with I feel like I'm preaching or something. Actually, if I could beg your indulgence, I have like 3 topics that I'd like to discuss, and in no particular order of importance. The first one is, and I've discussed this with prior commissioners before, is the handicap parking place at the far west end of the parking lot. While it probably meets the letter of the law, it certainly doesn't meet the spirit of the law as far as handicap parking is concerned. If you'll recall, that particular parking space has 2 handicap parking spaces with the van access in the middle. Unfortunately, for a person in a wheelchair, in order for them to get any place from that parking place, they have to go into a lane of traffic that is part of the parking lot. Then they have to go into another lane of traffic that is the street in order to get to a sidewalk. And it would be a very simple fix to simply, at the end of that van access area, to just do a little curb cut and pour a very small piece of concrete. They could go directly from their vehicle to a sidewalk rather than having to compete with vehicular traffic on 2 separate streets. I wish you would consider that. The second thing that I would like you to consider is the parking that is directly along the river, the nose-in parking in the main parking lot that's directly along the river. Unfortunately, or fortunately, that is such a beautiful place to park. And unfortunately, the fishermen who don't want to pay the $2 parking fee and who don't want to walk an extra 10 or 15 steps monopolize that strip along there, that head-in parking, so that people that come to just view the river, sit and eat their lunch, whatever, don't have a nice place to park and view the river, or those that want quick access to the boardwalk and to the tent area that's there in the summertime. It's not available for them. An easy fix for that would simply be to make that strip along there, at least a portion of that strip along there, 2-hour parking. That would eliminate that problem, allow people to park there at all times.
Is that this right here off of this part?
On the other side of the Bridgeport Market.
Okay.
That wasn't an advertisement, that was simply a way of defining where it was. Just on the other side of the market there.
Bridgeport Market, we got that.
Thank you, Terry.
Just for the west of Bridgeport.
Yes, that strip
The problem
from,
I see with that is enforcement.
I'm sorry?
Enforcement. We don't have people who go there.
Terry, I understand that. I think that most conscientious people, if they saw that it was 2-hour parking, just wouldn't park there. Okay, you probably would, Terry, but most conscientious, I use the word conscientious.
Officials who get there at 5 o'clock in the morning aren't really conscientious.
I know it, but it seems like it would be an attempt to free that
I
up
agree
for,
that it may help in some instances. But then the problem comes to, and me being one of the fishermen that do park there, is if you don't get there at 4:30 or 5, one of the workers there, they all park in there as well. The people that do the concessions.
oh, well, I think if they saw that it was 2-hour parking, they would park someplace else as well. I mean, I think that, I appreciate the fact that the port doesn't have the enforcement, but I really think that it would help the situation. The third thing that I'd like to move on to is really more a matter of frustration, economics, that sort of thing, and that was that unfortunate piece of fiction that appeared in the newspaper last week. Somebody, without regard to the port, or without regard to the property values around the port, wrote a scathing report of the condition of the port. Now, I basically live there. I'm right there at the port all year during all daylight hours. And the indictment that they put in the newspaper regarding the condition of the port was fiction at best, or fiction at worst. I don't know what you would want to call it. It's simply, none of it was true. And for it to be on the front page of the newspaper, I thought was very unfortunate. We have a good workforce here. They keep the lawns mowed, they keep the trash picked up. This about people skinny dipping and diapers and all of that made the port really look, unfortunately, very poor. And people that live here understand that that's just not true. People that don't live here and want to visit here read stuff like that and think, well, maybe we should just go on to another place where they care about the port. And that certainly isn't the case here. We care about the port. We take care of the port. I see Tracy out there cleaning the docks and mowing the lawns and doing that thing on a regular basis, and Jason and the rest of the crew. And my hat is off to them because they do a good job. And for someone to write such trash about the port and say that it's the condition of our port, I take a personal affront at that. I think it's insulting, and I just I'm very frustrated by it. Thank you.
Larry, can I have a comment?
Sure. Jay will take it.
Jay, I appreciate those comments, and as you know, I've lived just as close to the port as you have for 10 years.
I'm lower.
Yeah. I have always appreciated the port as a neighbor. I've got the port to the east, port to the south, and the port to the west. I'm sure everything noted in that letter has occurred at least once, but to present it as if it's a chronic, ongoing problem is a disservice. I've had people come up to me after reading this and says, boy, you've really got a problem down at that port. Man, how are you going to handle that terrible problem you have down there? And it was just a disservice to our community. I mean, literally in property value, if the outside world believes that letter was true, it lowered the property value by millions of dollars in this immediate area, because somebody's going to say, well, I'm going to look at a property in Florence. Have you seen what they said about the port? I mean, and it, so anyway, I want, as a neighbor to the port, and as you've stated, it is a disservice to what actually goes on down here. And I appreciate you coming forward and speaking to
Thank
the
you,
issue.
Jay. It's nice to hear from the community and from the locals. Ron? You want to-
The only way to counter something like that is to write a letter and refuting it. If you let it stand, that's the impression people are left with. You write a letter, you show them what really is true, and most people will listen to it. But you have to write that letter.
And get it equal.
Yeah.
Equal.
They'll give it to you, Jay.
Yeah.
Can I get your name for the record?
I'll give it to you another one. Ron Price. No.
Ron Price.
Any other speakers signed up here?
Jeff Amundson.
Kind of opening up a can of worms a little bit that most people haven't heard about is that as of the first of the year, Oregon put a law into effect that communities can develop an access route to an off-road riding area. We're the gateway to the Oregon Dunes National Recreation Area. Oak Ridge is kind of the first community they just opened up their community to side-by-sides start with, not quads, but just side-by-side vehicles like what Yamaha sells out here, to access the forest roads and making the community a staging area. So anyhow, I've got just information that I can give you to look at. Just kind of looking for your support. The Can of Worms is just, we've got a group who are going out meeting different businesses and people and putting the word out there. It's going to be quite a process to get, like, for Florence to open up the streets to have, you know, like they could come and camp at the port and keep your port, you know, more occupied throughout the year and ride out to the dunes. The staging areas in the dunes are so full. As the community would become the staging area, it would allow more people to come to the area to recreate. So this is something that's just new, but it is a law. But I've got information I can hand out to you.
I could ask you a question. Does that mean state law is allowing those vehicles on state roads?
Good question. That's what I want.
There's an access. Once the community says, yeah, this, you know, I could, you know, with certain limitations and whatnot, it goes to an access route advisory committee who comes out and reviews because it's safety, it's speed. So it goes through an access advisory committee after that before it would come through. But ODOT, Oregon Parks and Recreation, the Forest Service, it's all now just starting to come together.
So we would ask for it to be allowed from Florence Streets up to South Jetty?
Yes,
Is that
correct.
the destination?
Yeah, and then if the businesses in Glenada, you know, the motels
Sure.
and the gas station, they have to all pool together in order to have it a point.
A citizen approved?
Yeah, you know, because ODOT has to come in, and the big thing, the speed, which we already know, the speed south of the bridge of 45 is too fast. So that really needs to be slowed down. And then we talked to the casino. Of course, they're very interested in opening up area for that also. But basically, the streets would be open with, you know, limitations like the noise decibels and stuff like that, where first we thought like certain streets might be good, but up in Oak Ridge, when they were talking about it, the police chief said, stop, hold it, it's too hard to enforce if you've got separate streets. Certain businesses aren't going to be able to be involved. It's easier just to have all the streets open and go from there. So they're doing the side-by-sides, the class 4, to start with it, you know, for starting. So anyhow, so I've got
These
information.
vehicles will go on to public streets.
Yes, yep. And there's already, you know, limitations as far as the state. I've got it in here listed. You know, the noise decibels, the side-by-sides basically are quiet. If they go over a noise decibel, you know, then you can get a ticket. I mean, then the police will be able to give them a ticket. So it would be some revenue, but for the most part, the people who are driving these rigs, who can afford to have the rigs, have the toy haulers, are going to come from out of state and recreate. Travel Oregon is ready to start promoting whatever communities develop this. Travel Oregon, Travel Lane County. It's the big picture is that since we're the gateway to the dunes, this could be an awesome thing for the motels, for your campground.
It has made a big difference for Oak Ridge.
So what are they?
And that and their the bicycle camping, the thing. that
Yeah,
they're
the
doing.
off-road bikes and stuff has
Yeah.
been a big deal up there. But the side-by-sides is,
Vacation in Lake Havasu this year, and they rode them all over town down there.
Legally.
yeah.
They have
So this is
turn
just some
lights and
information to
tail
look
lights
at.
and everything
Good
on them. They
proposal.
drive
Thank
them
you.
all over town.
Yeah,
And-
very, very interesting. I caught me by surprise.
Like I say, this is for a file.
Thank you.
It's, you know, I,
Sandrails too?
no, not sandrails, no.
And my Raptor, I guess I wouldn't be able to.
No. Well, not at this point. Up in Oak Ridge, the other ATV community is going, well, how about us? You know, the quads and stuff, because you got the forest roads, and they're saying, no, not for the first year. Let's see how this all goes. But according to the Oregon law, they don't say just side by sides.
Okay.
But that could be a city ordinance. I'm thinking with the people who have them, they're safe, you know, up to 1,600 pounds for like my 4-seater is 1,600 pounds. I mean, you've got more of a vehicle than a motorcycle, but So we've got a group who is just forming and wants, trying to talk to the different businesses. And before we go to the city of Florence, I'm just hoping that we can have some of your support to help the city, walk through this process.
Let me reinforce one thing when you're talking about bringing campers to our campground. I ride a quad, and I know that during the winter, if the weather is decent, you cannot get into that staging area. If you get there past 9:30 in the morning, you're shut out.
Yep.
And so this would, during our slow area, this very possibly would be a benefit. I have a hard time imagining them allowing across the 101 bridge, but reading what the law says.
That's the biggest hurdle, but with the combination of the city and like for you guys, for the port and city, we've already had a meeting with Joe Henry, John Omlin from Valley Power Sports, and myself. I'm Jeff Amundson with the other card. We had a meeting with him last summer, and he says this is a great idea. I don't have the resources to put a committee together, but if you put a committee together and get kind of a plan down, we can piggyback on your idea and go from there. So that's kind of it. I mean, I'm learning that it takes quite a process just to get to this point. And so that's what I came here today, is just to try to get some input and some possible support once we go to the city. And then from there, then it goes to ODOT, and with the pressure from this, the ODOTs will listen, and they already are. The wheels are turning at ODOT. And then for the Forest Service, they're not going to spend money for a better or bigger staging area, but if the community becomes the staging area, then more people can get out there. Plus, it gives more revenue to the city for people coming in who can't go to the Honeyman Campground. So.
Well, I want to thank you very much this is very interesting. I'm glad that.
I mean, so that if you think of the big picture, like Lake Havasu and other places, it's working. And like Idaho, we went up to Glacier Park a couple of years ago, and here these side-by-sides are at the gas station, and they're meeting up for about a 60-mile ride. It's a whole new, it's kind of, they think out of the box, but when you think of the Oregon dunes, we're the gateway to the dunes. So I mean, when that could be advertised around the country, it could be a real positive thing.
And today's paper, I think it was the Guard, talked about trying to rescue the dunes because the grass is ruining them.
I guarantee you a good quad will get rid of that grass.
Just
Way
let
to
us get
go.
out there and drive, get it knocked down, and we can
That's-
start driving on it, and we can kind of revert.
I've ripped up some myself.
So the other thing is, as other communities, this law is originally for more rural, like for Lapine and Oak Ridge and rural Oregon, and as these, it's not every community who has an off-road area. So it's not like every community can do this. So Florence is in a special spot because of the national dunes. People will come here, once a year, but if they can go other places and we don't get on board, they might only come once a year instead of 3, 4, or 5 times a year. So it's something to think about.
Jeff, I'm trying to get this straight for myself, maybe the other commissioners understand. You're a citizen advisory board to the state on a law that's already been passed.
The law has been passed. We just have a group of about 10 local people who are
Sure.
who
Advocating
realize
for
what this is
themselves,
happening here.
Yes.
So we're just trying to get the support of the community and be able to go to the city of Florence, to the city councilors, and talk to them if they're willing to get on board with this, and then if they can open up, pass a law that they will allow side-by-sides on the streets, then it will go to the Access Advisory Commission, which involves ODOT.
So you have nothing to do with the Access Advisory Committee?
I don't, but John Omlin, the guy right there from Valley Power Sports, he's on the commission. So if there's any other questions that I can't answer, he's the guy who can come up with some of the
So you're here
answers.
specifically, not so much you want to see Florence get in tune because you're local or in the valley or in our district.
I live here, the
Sure.
only.
I'm just trying, I guess my question, Jeff, not to interrupt you, but before I lose my train of thought is, you aren't here trying to get the rest of the state tied into this. You're here,
Just
okay.
for the city of Florence. I mean, other
No, go
communities
ahead.
are gonna do the same thing, and as they get that approved, and the word gets out there, the people who recreate, who have, you know,
Go to Reedsport.
go to Reedsport, Winchester Bay, or they're gonna go, you know, instead of coming here, like they'll come here in the wintertime maybe once. But if they can go up to Oak Ridge or Bend or Lapine and unload at the Best Western Motel, we might not see as many. We've had the luxury of having people coming here. But so if we can get on board, it's a whole new experience, like, you know, Lake Havasu. So, but like for your RV camp, they could come in here, which would be awesome, to camp for the weekend. They want to walk downtown and have a steak dinner or have a beer, or listen to some music. They're right here. They're right here in town. Because you know, not everybody can go to Honeyman Campground, or for a lot of locals, a lot of us guys here are just local guys who like to go ride. We'll have coffee on Friday morning down here. You know, ride our machine down and have coffee and go out to the dunes.
But you know that staging is an issue at certain times. even
If
in the
you're
winter.
not up and in that staging area by like 9 o'clock, you might as well wait till 3 or 4 in the afternoon and then go out.
Yeah, you've lost access.
No, I
So
understand that, and I appreciate your effort. I just wanted to get it clear if you're here advocating for the entire state or
no, I'm
just this area.
just for
So-
local Florence area. I'm just I live
work.
down on North Loftus, south of the bridge, so I'm trying to get Deacon from Sand Ranch, who actually bought the pitch and putt golf course and has plans with that, and the motels down there. They need to get together. If Florence gets this going, it's going to be access to the South Jetty Road and then down. So I'm hoping to do Glenada down to Mitchell Loop, you know, where the church and gas station, because in order to do this, they want you to have access to food, fuel, lodging.
Are you contacting Dune City? You're gonna go make a presentation to,
I haven't presented to them, because basically the Glenada area, as far as the lodging and fuel, when you get down into Dune City, you do have the campground. That could be like a step two.
There's a lot of vacation rentals. My brother has one in Dune City, and he has a lot of quad side-by-side riders, but it would be very beneficial to them if they could jump
So
on.
this could be, you know, like a 2 or 3 step process.
Okay.
Of, you know, the big thing is going to be the bridge and 101. And for the speed, it's got to be a safe access. And then we know, like that one gal, you know, there was an accident who was killed on the other side of the bridge, you know, a month, 6 weeks ago or whatever. You know, but that speed needs to be slowed down. And we've already talked to ODOT about the intersection at the South Jetty Road.
Well, they're gonna be working on that bridge for another 20 years, I think, so the speed's taken care of as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. So anyhow, that's just some information.
Yes,
And
it is.
that's all I'm looking is for some support, and you know, your ideas or input on this is kind of like it's going to evolve. So it's just like I say, it was just passed as a law, which took quite a few years to get to this point.
I just met with one of the young ladies in the Forest Service today about some work down that direction, and she wasn't even familiar with it. So you're
really-
about you're further along than the Forest Service is at this point.
So I mean, so the forest, once we get like the local community and get this going, then the forest, all we've got to do is just allow the access. I mean, we're not going to have to spend money for parking lot, and you know, so we're trying to get all the different, you know, holdups to get answers to that, and so it's a smooth transition as possible. So I'm trying to get a lot of legwork down before we talk to the City Council of Florence. But Joe Henry is aware of it, and so we're just trying to get more support to go to them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it very much. Tina?
That's all for public comments. Any more?
Okay. Yeah. We're going to move on in the meeting. The end of public comments. We will have a session at the end before we close for additional public comments. Right now, we're going to approve all of minutes by consent. If there's no objections.
no objection.
questions? No? Okay, the minutes will be approved by consent. Now we move on to the financials, and I'm sure our manager McClure will have a presentation for us, I hope.
Just a short one. Good evening, Commissioners. Starting with the balance sheet, I just wanted to let you know that we did some journal entries from the auditor in January, so there have been some changes made on the balance sheet. I did send it to the journal entries were a little different than what we've had in the past, so I had a couple of questions for the auditor, and I sent her a copy of the December balance sheet and now the new January balance sheet, just to get her review and her approval that we did the journal entries correct. And unfortunately, I haven't heard back from her yet. So if you have any concerns with the balance sheet, it is a little bit of a work in progress right now. If you don't have any questions on that, we can move forward to the profit and
I
loss.
only have one question.
All right,
Is it Dizzle? That's an interesting feud you've got
where's that?
1140. But that's all right. I'm just.
Picky.
It's a picky. It's a grammar
The
police.
typo?
Yep, that's a typo.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
All right.
We'll take care of that.
Yeah.
I really don't have anything major to report on the general fund profit and loss variance report. Income and expenses are tracking pretty normally for January. And if you advance to page 4, you get into the capital outlay category. And you will notice that almost all the way down at the bottom of page 4, right before you get into debt service, you've got your total capital outlay. I want you to focus on the far right columns where you've got your year-to-date number of 38,000 and your budget of 23,000. We are overexpended in the capital outlay category. You will be entertaining a resolution this evening to correct that overage. So that is what Resolution 221-18A is to do, is to transfer money out of personnel services and into capital outlay. Moving on to the capital maintenance fund, there were no expenditures there in January, but we are moving forward on the Moe's building repair project, and we have the attorney reviewed the construction contract from Lofi Construction, which you awarded last month, and we just sent that off to the bid, the bond company, and so everything is coming around full circle, and we hope to start that project in the next couple weeks for Moe's building repairs.
So that was the Lofi bid?
Yes.
And that was for the entire thing?
No, that was for just a portion of the riverside wall and replacing the cupolas on top of the roof, rebuilding the cupolas.
They were the worst parts.
That are on each side of the neon sign. So those were the worst parts of the building. So.
And then Prater's been issued contract for the roof?
Prater withdrew his bid because he is booked. So he is unable to complete repairs. So he will not be doing that. So we still have that to address.
The hammer is busy.
So we'll be looking at more repairs in next year's budget.
How essential is that repair?
How what?
How essential is that repair?
It's right up there with, all of the repairs need to be done. That the building has not been maintained in many years, so.
Yeah, I know. I mean, do we need to advertise immediately for that?
I don't think so. I think what we're doing right now with the $35,000 fix with Lofi Construction are the priority projects. So looking at the occupancy report for January, not having a real stormy winter helps with people in the campground. The marina is about the same because we don't get a whole lot of change there, but we are up, our occupancy for the campground is 54%, and that is up from 47% last year. The only the other thing I wanted to mention is that we are going to start working on a draft budget for next year. Kelly and I are going to a budget law class tomorrow in Newport, so we will not be in the office. And we also have 2 vacancies on the budget committee for this year. So I've sent out a press release, and we are hoping to get some applications. So if anybody knows of anybody who would like to be on the budget committee,
I saw it in the paper.
good, good.
Being the newbie, how many meetings, how many hours?
Last year was the first year since I've worked here we had 2 meetings. Normally it's just 1. And it's anywhere from 10 to 15 hours. We advertise 20 just to be on the safe side. But we usually like to have a draft budget out by late April. We usually historically have our first budget meeting the first week of May. In the event we need a second meeting, second or third week of May, and then that's for the proposed, and then that gets approved, and then it comes to the board for adoption in June before the end of the fiscal year.
Okay. I'll see if I can recruit somebody, and it might be filled, but I'll see if I can.
Okay. All right. That's it for financials.
No other questions? Okay, I think you get the floor for an update of the erosion repair project.
All right. So I did hear from our engineer, Jack Aitken. He had sent the joint permit application to the Department of State Lands and the Corps of Engineers in January for a pre-application review. This included the revisions for, what you had approved early in January. The final joint permit application has not been submitted yet. The Department of State Lands process is once that is submitted, it's usually a 30-day review period for DSL, then it goes into a 30-day public review, and then it goes into it could be up to a 60-day final review. Well, Jack says he doesn't think it will take that long, and that's why he is doing this pre-application and conferences with the agencies so he can speed up the review process. He hopes to have everything they need by the end of this week, and his focus is on the Port of Siuslaw to have this project approved. And after final agreement from everybody, we will get the form to sign, and then it will go off to DSL to be submitted. He is actually shooting for April for the 2-week construction, and he also plans on getting in touch with Business Oregon to try to obtain 100% funding for the project.
Repeat that?
From the beginning,
No. Just that last little bit caught my eye. He's
So,
gonna try to get 100%
right,
funding?
so the FEMA grant is a 75-25, and he is trying to get our 25% match funded by Business Oregon.
That would be good if that can work.
That would not be a loan, that would be an outright grant.
Yes.
That'd be nice work if you can get it.
Okay, thank you.
That's it.
Is that it for the
That's it.
zero?
Yes.
Oh, I thought there was gonna be a big but. There's not?
No,
Okay,
that's
good.
where we stand.
Okay, good. The next item on the agenda is to discuss public input committees.
So this is on the agenda because we've gone through 3 public input meetings, and you said it was a 2-step process. So after 3 public input meetings, you were going to discuss forming some committees to move to the next step. So this is your conversation to decide how you want to proceed with that.
Commissioners, I've talked a little bit to Dina about this, and I think, Dina, you are in favor of having some committees.
Mhm.
And personally, I agree. What's your feelings? Nancy?
It'd be all right.
Here's my concern. We don't have a manager and we don't have an interim manager. And I don't know how advisable it is to try to build a plan around, create a plan and not have the manager have any buy-in or input. And my other concern, what I'm getting at is we may want to postpone actually conducting the evaluation and the determination until we get some other things in place. I think some of this is going to require research and legwork that the committee members are not going to be able to do, but a manager or a staff could do. It could require some, even some field trips to various locations, and all of that needs to be arranged. So I'm just worrying, are we putting things on our plate that we're not quite ready to handle? Kind of a reality check is what I'm.
And I'm gonna step in and say, I tend to agree with you, Bill, that I think we'd be burdening a manager that's coming in by saying, oh, by the way, now you have public input. Let's work with a new manager when we do select one, is my input. That being said,
I agree with you, Terry.
yeah, why?
To put this off or to go ahead and do some of the, we could do an initial
Set up
thing and get
something.
some, get committees. But as far as trying to figure out feasibility, whether some of the things that are suggested we can even do,
Or finances related to them.
yeah, 'cause
Ultimately,
it's all
Nancy,
gonna be a lot of money.
ultimately, it's gonna be the manager's position to work with these people. And that's that was
Oh,
my.
waiting till we get a manager.
Wait
Oh,
until.
I'm for
I'm saying-
that.
Yeah,
I didn't understand
yeah,
that.
I don't wanna burden telling a new manager, oh, by the way, now you have 3 other public meeting people that wasn't in your job description that you have to deal with on public input.
Okay, now you lost me again.
If we start doing a public input committees, okay, we form this committee,
Right.
I'm not gonna come down here and manage them, and neither are you. The new manager is gonna have to manage them and be the dialogue with them.
And also doing the
So, okay,
legwork.
so I hear you saying that we are waiting, would like
Yes,
to wait
we-
until the new manager is on board.
That's my opinion. I think
I
Dave
agree.
agreed. Yeah,
That's
let's
okay.
let the new manager.
I wasn't hearing it all that way.
Mike, do you have anything to add?
No, I I agree. I was kind of hoping that it all get settled by now, but it's certainly not. But I don't want to drop it. It's something that we started it, and it's important to pursue it.
Oh, I want
But I
to
do think that-
reinforce that I'm not in favor of dropping it. I've got some things that, and I know Terry does too. We've got some blue buildings to deal with. We've got port and port security to deal with. But I think we need to have a team in place, especially for doing some of the research that I'm going to ask the staff to do. And so, but enough said. I think we're in agreement.
It needs
Mr.
to be a
Chairman.
priority for us, though.
Absolutely.
to do that.
And I would like to suggest that at least one commissioner sit or 2 sit on these committees,
Oh,
so it's
and we'll-
not all a staff. I mean, so there is
Sure.
interaction.
Oh, I want to be involved.
Very
I'm
good.
expecting that we'll have a work session over this as soon as we get to that point and set up the ground rules and how we're going to go about selection and the type of committees and
Because is the original suggestion, Dina, that there be several different committees?
Well, that was,
I mean, with
that
the
was,
commissioner on,
you brought this, when I brought the
different
list
ideas.
of projects to the board in October, you wanted public input, because if we're going to raise rates, we wanted to have it justified. What improvements need to be made? You wanted public input, and then you took it to another level and said, well, we need to, create some maybe advisory committees or something. And then, because we were talking about updating the strategic business plan as well. So,
Well, I think that the board, the commissioners, when we get a manager, I think that we need to meet and we'll make that decision as to what committees we want.
The structure.
And the structure, because we're gonna have a new manager with all kinds of things he or she's gonna have to learn and do without jumping right in the middle of that. And I think this is our program that we've put together and we've been supportive of and we wanna move forward with. So I think the commissioners need to make those decisions, meet together in a work session and just kind of formulate.
Perfect. Agreed.
I think this time it'll just be on hold.
okay,
Yeah.
very good.
Thanks, Terry. Good decision.
New business, moving on. You get to stand right up there, and we have a resolution to transfer funds that was explained to us by the manager. Would anybody like to read this resolution? You want me to read it, Dina?
Sure.
Forsyth Youth Law Resolution number 2-21-18A. This is a resolution to transfer funds between appropriation categories in the general fund. Whereas Resolution 8-16-17B was approved to upgrade the security camera system at a cost of $10,000. Resolution was approved to authorize expenditure to replace a maintenance vehicle at a cost of $9,000. Personnel Service has appropriation funds available to pay for these expenditures due to a decrease in personnel. Therefore, be it resolved at a regular board meeting of the Port of Siuslaw Board of Commissions, appropriations and personal services are being decreased in the amount of $19,000, and the appropriations in capital outlay are being increased by $19,000. How was that? Did anybody
Very good.
understand that?
So we're moving $19,000 out of personal services into capital outlay.
I'll make that in the form of a motion.
Motion's heard,
I'll second it.
seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It does pass, Dina.
Thank you.
We'll let you balance your books.
Yep.
Very good.
We have manager reports.
Well, if we have public, oh, that's right, we do have manager reports, all right. So on February 7th, I met with Dina Plavis and Russ Pearson, who are members of a local group called Vision Quest. They are putting together a program called Live Like a Local. They use local residents in their programs to share interesting information about the area. They will have one program a month, and each program will last 2 days. The first day will be indoors with a movie or a lecture, and the second day will be in the field. They are planning whale watching in March, birding in April, and wildlife in the dunes for May. Summer programs are not confirmed, but they are planning programs to hunt for agates, how to and where to go crabbing and clamming, where to find good tide pools, and good places to hike and bike. They would like the port to be involved by either having a representative on their team, sponsoring programs at the port, or just being an information outlet for their programs. So this is more of an FYI. I'm just sharing this group with you. It sounds like they've got some really neat things going. Okay. I also wanted to talk to you about the Pacific Northwest Waterways mission to Washington, D.C. I will not be going, and but I have sent in a registration, and I did book a hotel room. I did not book airfare. So that is up for discussion for you commissioners to decide if one or possibly even two of you would like to attend that conference in Washington, D.C.
I would certainly bow out if any one of the other commissioners wanted to go.
I thought you were gonna go.
No, that wasn't the deal. I said if another commissioner would go.
I was thinking about it, but I bowed out too.
It'd be a great trip for you.
I've been traveling. I've had a lot of great trips. I need to stay home and get some projects done.
I think at this time,
Well, that's,
Have you got a new suit, Terry?
I do not tie a tie. I think at this time, we may just cancel.
You wanna send somebody on staff?
I would agree.
One way.
You would go, Nancy?
No, I'd like to send someone on staff.
No.
No, at this time.
This year, not, but in future years.
Oh,
We
I
would-
would like to
Because
go
it's very
next year. I'm
important.
planning on it, but
And I didn't book a airfare just because I knew that would be non-refundable, but the registration and the hotel room, there is time to cancel that, so. If
We
you would
aren't out
like,
anything.
I will just go ahead and cancel the arrangements I've already made for this year.
Okay.
we'll let Newport get all the money, but next year we'll get our share.
We'll get them in the strategic business plan.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll get them through the IGA.
Yeah.
So I just have a couple of projects to update you on. The U.S. Coast Guard auxiliary shed is going to be coming down in the next couple of weeks. It's in pretty bad shape, so we've isolated the electric, and Coast Guard Auxiliary is bringing in personnel to actually do the demolish. We will get a drop box, and we will take care of taking the debris away. But we have no plans to rebuild that shed at this time. You got a question?
Got one question.
Okay.
I heard it from somebody I know real well. They were complaining about the new light that you have up there shining kind of like a spotlight on a building right to the west. And I know the city is trying all the new lighting standards, because I know I'm going to have to comply on the new building I'm putting up. It's not supposed to shine off the property, but they put a new one up, and I don't know how they adjusted, but it is like a spotlight onto. And the person I'm talking about is rather close to me, and she's gonna.
Well, that's the first I've heard of it, so
Okay.
let me look into it.
Okay. Well,
Thank you.
she griped to me, so I'm passing it on.
Okay, so the reason we're not planning to rebuild that shed is because the Coast Guard Auxiliary doesn't use it anymore. They operate out of a trailer, and when they come to do their inspections, we usually cone off part of the parking lot, and they come in and set up a table, and so they just kind of do their own thing. The Department of Fish and Wildlife guy who comes every summer to count fish, he uses it. So we've thought about the possibility of maybe putting up a little shelter there, like a kiosk or a covering. You know, we could maybe pave a little pavilion, put a picnic table there with a little shelter. So there's ideas there, but we're just not going to rebuild the shed.
We're gonna lose the two stuffed fish.
Those are still there. Those are not attached to the building, so those
they're gonna
plan to
remain.
stay.
Good.
Yep.
Is that where some of the little life jackets were?
Yes, so that will be coming down because that's attached to the shed, but we are going to work on getting something set up
Something.
temporarily to where there will still be life jackets available. Okay. We just bought a shed from Home Depot for janitor's supplies, so you'll be seeing a little shed going up out here behind the public the restroom and showers and laundry room. OSHA does not approve of us having our janitor supplies in utility closets, so that's been on our project list to get changed. So you'll see a little project going on with that. And then we also had a visit today from Terra Firma, and they have come to give us a quote to fix the uneven sidewalks that we have that are safety issues. We've got some over here by GDOT Gate and over by the Coast Guard shed. And so they've given us a quote of about $3,400 to come in, and they can do it in one day, and it's guaranteed for 5 years. And we do have money in the facilities budget to take care of that, so.
Do you need anything from us for that?
No.
Just authorize that?
Yeah. We're also going to be reconstructing the website. So it will probably be down next week, maybe the following week, but we will have a a homepage saying website is under construction. This is so they can go in and rebuild the site so it can be reactive to smartphones, and also be a lot easier to, it's going to have a little bit of a different format. It's going to be easier to manage, easier to post updates, and so the website will be down for a week, maybe more. And the last thing I wanted to share with you was the latest quote. I emailed this to you, but, excuse me. Yeah, that's okay. Just a couple of, just so you guys could see what the latest, now that,
I saw it.
that picture is a little bit larger on that piece of paper than it actually will be, but that is the latest draft or proof from Treehouse Signs for the Welcome to Port of Siuslaw sign that would be placed out in Mariners Plaza on the west end of the boardwalk. And the cost for that would be about $2,700.
Did you get a chance to look at the raised letter one he was talking about?
No.
For 3,400?
No.
I think it'd be a lot more attractive, it's a lot more money.
Be
Okay.
more vulnerable to weather too.
Terry, look at those posts are down at the harbor in Southern California. I was looking at the standards that they were mounted on. That what I saw down in Redondo Beach when I was down there over the weekend was a turn post that had a nice nautical feel to them, and I was looking at your supporting posts on each side. It would be nice to, I think it would be a nice way to support the sign. And I'll email you the picture.
About just a
Instead
couple-
of, this is just boards, isn't it?
Well, how about a
There's
couple of
posts.
railroad
How about
ties?
just a couple tarred,
Well, I'm going to inform you that you cannot install railroad ties anywhere anymore in the city of Florence, but that's beside.
we're not in the city of Florence.
Oh, yes, we are, but that's all right.
No, this is great. I do like Bill's suggestion. It looks kind of plasticky, and I don't know if that's gonna be the end result. I don't know what the medium is.
Well,
but-
it's still a work in progress. We can still work on the design. And, I just wanted to let you know that that's where we're at right now.
As far as I'm concerned, I like this.
I like the
Yeah,
graphic.
I do too.
Yeah, I just would like to work on a little bit of a nautical support on each side. I think it would add to it. Did the audience get it?
The posts.
I do have one question I would like to ask those. I wonder if we could buy one sign, identical sign for reserve at a cheaper rate.
What?
To have two?
Well, eventually we're gonna have to replace that sign. Or we may want another sign in a different place, maybe right out front here. We don't know, but if we could have two of them made right now,
Yeah.
I don't think we have, I'm pushing the budget here for, terra firma and sidewalks and a website rebuild, some of these things that are coming across the desk that, we're looking in the budget for some of this, so I kind of want to keep the cost down as much as possible.
I'd say it'd be cheaper to do it now than in the long run, but I understand the budget.
But once they're set up the graphic, if he comes back and says, I can do two for 500 more,
Yeah,
why don't, make the inquiries, what?
okay.
Right, Terry?
Because that price, I think, is installation, everything, posts.
That's all I have for my reports.
Questions?
You have commission reports?
Commission reports? Nancy, we'll start with you.
Okay. On the 25th of January, I met with Heather and Kristen. These were two representatives from the PNWA, which, now that we're not going to have anybody going to Washington, they made a request that I think was that email that I sent to Kelly or about, will that stuff be sent to them from the office of,
Well,
just,
that's already included, our projects are already included in that
That's-
nine-page report.
yeah, that's what I
You have
thought.
to look back and it's like on page 9. But our issues are already addressed in that document.
Okay, that's good. And then I went to a watershed meeting in Mapleton. Jim Grano and a 7th grade teacher, Mackenzie Perry, talked about their kids' science camps, which are just absolutely wonderful things that they've been doing for quite a while. Went to a city council meeting and then to Lane Act. And this was something that Harlan referenced with this money from the legislature where it's been determined to be bicycle paths, safe routes to schools. It makes it easier for small communities to make a request for some of these monies that are for these particular kinds of things. And then tomorrow night, I'll be at an LCOG meeting in Eugene, and then the last Wednesday of the month will be watershed meeting. That's it.
Not much. I was away when the Chamber of Commerce met. I did go up to, let's see, what are the initials? Small districts,
SDA.
Special districts.
special districts. I was only able to make, I'm gonna have to reduce my calendar some. I was only able to make one day, but one of the reasons I wanted to go is I wanted to get an idea of what kind of support the organization provides, and so I made the first day, and I was impressed. And there was another guy up there with me. I'll see if he's got anything more to add.
It was a very informative conference. I would suggest if any of the other commissioners ever get a chance to do something like that, take
Yeah,
the
I'm gonna
opportunity
make all
to
3
do it.
days next year, for sure. I'm gonna make sure my calendar is clear.
I understand Kelly was there too?
Yeah.
Good. Mike?
No, I don't have anything.
I don't have anything, but I do have one question. Where we coming on security
Security cameras,
uh,
security gates.
gates?
We have met with one company who came out on site on Friday, and Tracy walked with them out on the property, and so they will be putting in a quote. With gates, it's usually you have someone who's building the gate, and the security company does the software for the locking feature. So this company in particular does the locking feature, and they subcontract the gate. So it's kind of a two-step process. So what we are doing right now is just looking at gates, something decorative for the boardwalk, for right downtown, but functional. And then probably looking at, I think, didn't he say 7,500 per gate for the electronics? Because you it's going to be spendy, because you've got electrical,
You have to get power
you've
to
got,
it. and-
and you've got lots
Signal.
of stages of technology. So, you've got stuff that you can program from your phone, or stuff that you can, set up on a, like a little server. So it's complicated. So, and there's 2 other companies that we want to contact to get competitive, just other quotes from.
As you get tear sheets on the product, would you keep me in the loop on that?
Sure.
I would like to evaluate it and kibitz.
Did-
Topper will be sent to do it.
Okay, yeah. So we're in the process of just getting companies out to take a look at it and give
Okay.
us bids.
Okay.
Did you ever conquer the problem with the ladder at the fish dock? At the hoist dock?
Wharf,
Yeah.
that's what Topper's gonna look at this week. I'm gonna have them look at it as well. Security Monster doesn't deal with that kind of a thing.
Yeah. Well, it's essential that's there, I think. There's no
Yeah.
way they're gonna walk around. They'll end up, people will be jumping.
Right.
Fishermen,
Yep.
seriously, when you're working
But
on your boat.
Topper's gonna look at it when they come down next week or 2, or sooner.
Do you think that they're gonna keep the ladder and embellish it?
Well, they'll probably block it off, cage it.
That's why I would do the same thing we did over here.
Yep.
Okay. That's all I had, Dina. At this time here, we're going to open the meeting back up to public comments. Anybody has anything they'd like to say in closing? We'll ask you to limit your time to 3 minutes? Okay, to 5 minutes? Anything? Jeff? Good to see you.
No, you don't wanna ask me. I got too many questions. I'm just trying to get back in the swing of
I
things.
met with Chief Turner.
Good, good to see you here.
You can, it's public comments, you can say something if you'd like.
Sure, you have the floor.
Me?
Yes, sir.
I sat down with Chief Turner last Friday, and he gave me about 45 minutes, and I voiced some of the concerns of the people walking on the docks at night, calls that I've made, and he has hired 3 other gentlemen to be aboard his team, and he assures me there's going to be a heavier police presence down on these docks, as well as driving through the campground. They're going to try to start doing the patrols from 8 o'clock on, and they're going to be selective hours so nobody can really profile what they're doing. But he agrees that there needs to be a stronger police presence down here, and he's happy to provide it.
Excellent.
What are our hours of use for the public on the docks?
Dawn to dusk?
Dawn to dusk.
That's
And
what's
after
supposed to.
dusk, and if they have no business there, they aren't paid customers, and they shouldn't be on.
Correct.
Question. Sorry. Dawn to dusk? Some people fish till dark.
It's just posted on the signage that the public docks are open from dawn to dusk. Or closed from dusk to dawn, maybe that's the way it's posted.
Well, now we're splitting gray hairs. I've seen you out fishing salmon at 2 hours before daylight.
Can't put in. It's not open.
You
Can't
got-
be on the docks.
It's just,
No,
it's
that's-
just posted for a kind of just to cover us. Not to be on, it's our recommendation not to be on the docks. They're gonna be on the docks whether we like it or not. But if anything happens before dusk or before dawn or after dawn, it's gonna be on the person that's down there.
I'm
It's,
not
it's
so
a
sure we wanna
liability
say it's
reason.
just
Yeah.
for us, because
It's a
we need to have a set policy, I think, that, you know, a certain time to certain time.
For
If we're gonna
security.
call the police to come down there,
Well,
or someone's gonna call the police, there's gotta be something. It's not, it can't be open for interpretations, my
Well,
friend.
do we have a formal resolution that
I'm-
that the commission has acted on that sets that policy?
I'm sure we
It's
do.
probably from many, many, many years
Okay.
ago.
And maybe we need to revisit that.
Yeah, because you're exactly
You can
right.
revisit that.
Well, at 5 o'clock in the morning, there's definitely people down here in the dark. There's no question about it. They're in the dark. So if you can't enforce it, then why have it?
That's right.
I mean, that's the thing with a bunch of stuff that's going on everywhere in the world right now. Don't make new laws that you can't enforce.
We're not trying to invent them. My point is, Jeff, I'm just trying to make sure that we have something on the book before he calls the cops, complaining about people walking on the docks. They may have a public right to be there.
Absolutely.
So,
But you can't say dawn to dusk and not enforce it.
I know.
And
And
you
that's
have no
why I
way of
asked that.
enforcing
So, I think there's something there we need to talk about. If we're gonna lock the docks, put security gates on them,
Then it's gonna be time regulated.
yes. But you have to remember, the moorage dock is not ever regulated for hours. We aren't saying dawn to dusk where you launch your boat. Am I correct, Tracy?
That's correct.
That's
over
a
24
that's a
hours.
24-hour
Yeah,
dock.
we're just talking about the West Marina.
Yeah,
The,
we're talking about our own
Your
West Marine.
personal, where your
Yes.
personal
Yes.
vehicles are at.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, people will go over when they launch here. They always float over and walk out that way to get to the rig, or just get out of the way, courtesy.
Right.
And there's not much we're going to be able to say about that.
So is the crab place gonna stay where it's at? Maybe it's not there anymore.
The Novelli's Crab and Seafood, it's there.
On the water.
Yes.
So they close at dark, at dusk?
They do currently, I think.
Because you're saying you can't go out there to buy crab, right? Because it closes at dusk.
well, she's
Right,
not even
she's-
open right now.
Yeah,
Right.
She's,
Yeah,
she's,
I mean, that's
she's
why I don't even
open
know if
from
they're
May
there.
through September
And
and
dusk
during
is at
during
9
daylight
o'clock.
hours.
Yeah, dusk is at
So
9
she
o'clock.
she closes before dark.
She's not the issue.
Anyway, we have some stuff to work through before we put up gates.
Oh yeah, There's a lot, and these are good conversations that need to be addressed.
That being said, I think it's time to close this portion of the open meeting, and the commission will resume in executive session.
You wanna take a 5-minute recess for that?
Yeah, let's take 5 minutes. Thank you.